Cavelero Registration Presentation 2019 for the class of 2024, which is our current 7th graders. So this presentation was given live during science classes by the 3 Cavelero counselors and administrators. This is Mr. Coe just giving you the quick highlights in case you were gone or need a quick review. One thing I should mention as I go through this, there is a parent night, which is Thursday the 14th at Cavelero, which also reviews this for parents, along with other additional information on courses like Challenge. So their mission statement was reviewed, as was the COLT acronym. Some program highlights. Students were reminded that some of their courses do fall under high school guidelines, and that those challenge courses can then be used to add to the high school transcript if necessary. Highlights also included sports in the fall for 8th grade and how that differs from 9th grade, and the fact that there are numerous tests that are taken in 8th grade while they're at CAV. Quick review of college requirements. This is a lot of information. It's in the handout that is given to the students, and it's also available on the Cavelero website. But the counselors went over what it looks like to graduate from high school and get into college and what those differences are. After that, they were introduced to the 24 credit graduation requirement, and it was clearly explained to them that in 4 years you have 24 credits, and you need all 24 credits to graduate. So you need to choose wisely, keep track of your progress, and pass all of your classes. Otherwise, you'll be coming back for more. They were also introduced to pathways. What your future might look like is going to affect what courses you might choose. So here are examples of freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years of high school. And there is a tool in Skyward. They spend a lot of time with it with freshmen, but even as an 8th grader, you can take a peek at the pathway planning and get an idea of where you might be headed. Example of an 8th grade student schedule: 6-period day, includes English, math, science, history, health and PE, and an elective. In each one of those subjects, students are going to have a choice of which class they take. And then at the bottom under the electives, there's a list, semester-long electives, so students would pick 2 of those. They cannot repeat any of those electives. They need to pick 2 different electives. And then they also have the choice of taking one of the year-long courses. So instead of, say, art and robotics, you may choose music. Music lasts all year. You only pick the one. Same with Spanish and same with leadership. World languages. We mentioned world languages to students because it affects when they want to take world language. If you are doing well academically, you have the option of taking Spanish. They do fill it with freshmen first because of the priority. But some electives, or some 8th graders do choose to take Spanish. You want to read up on the college requirements because for college you do need them concurrent, which means one after the other after the other. So once you start down the language train, you don't want to hop off and then hop back on, because then you're kind of starting over in terms of years. So think through that, decide what you want to do. This is intro screen to a leadership video promoting the leadership class. Another video on the art class. Screen, just give us a chance to review with them the flight and space class, which has only been around for I think 2 years now. And then the famous robotics. This screen takes a look at typical homework requirements for the typical kid. So that means it can range a lot depending on your reading speed and aptitude and work habits. But if you're going to take challenge courses, they want you to know that there is increased time outside of class that you need to spend on class. And you can pause the video at any point on any of these screens and take a closer look, or just view the slideshow directly. One thing to point out, Challenge English 8 versus Challenge Block. The Challenge Block includes Challenge English Language 8 and also combined with history. So it's kind of like taking double challenge, and they're blocked together with a single teacher. And then they cover algebra, geometry, challenge science, and Spanish. So that can add up to quite a bit of a workload if you're taking multiple challenge courses, so think through whether or not you're ready to do that. algebra, geometry, and algebra 2, you are going to increase your path by one class. So what that means is this year, if you're taking Math 7, you will enroll in Math 8, which is also called pre-algebra. Okay, they are one and the same. If you are in pre-algebra this year, you will take algebra next year. If you're in algebra this year, you will take geometry. And that is the way it will work, unless you're going to repeat a class because you found out that you took a more challenging class and aren't doing that well. You might be advised, in other words, B or better, you might be advised to retake the class again next year. But there's no skipping. Here is what challenge pathways might look like. So the math, English, science, and history are places where you can challenge up, and specifically for 8th graders, you want to focus on the math, English, and science. We just mentioned the math options, whether you're going to take Math 8 or pre-algebra, Algebra 1 or geometry. In English, you have the option to take Challenge 8. You do not have to take Challenge 7 to get into Challenge 8, although if you are in the Advanced Challenge group that's 2 years ahead, you have the option of taking the Challenge History block. And then in science, you can choose Challenge Science if you are at least 1 year ahead in math. In other words, if you are in Math 7 this year, you are not eligible to take Challenge Science because you need to be registered in algebra next year. High school credit classes include the list you see on the screen. If you take those courses and want them as part of your transcript later on in high school, before you graduate, you can fill out paperwork and request that that's moved onto your high school transcript. But it does not have to be. There are advantages and disadvantages depending on how well you do and what courses you want and where you plan on going to college. The student handbook is available online with all of the guidelines, as well as registration forms and parent presentation, much like this. You can all find those on the Cavelero website. Attendance was pointed out. There is a seat time guideline since many of these students are attending classes now that earn high school credit. Anything more than 10 absences, you can lose credit. So no matter what your grade is, no matter how well you're doing in class, you don't get credit. If you go over those 10, you are going to need to make up absences, or absence retrieval they call it. And you can only do that if they're excused, and you can only make up to 5 of those. Otherwise, you won't get credit. Tardies can also accumulate and work against your attendance, and so you want to be really aware of the fact that you're getting to school regularly. Here are the clubs. The point here is to show students how many different ways they can be engaged in school in addition to their courses. Sports, 8th grade, is a 4-sport season like middle school was. So you can look at each of the 4 seasons and what is offered, pointing out that football, softball, and cross country will be in the fall, and then once they're at CAV, they can get information on those other sports and the other sports seasons. And then 9th grade is completely separate. You've now entered the WIA regulations of high school sports, and that becomes a 3-season year. College Bound, another reminder that if you qualify for College Bound or you are yet to know what College Bound is, you need to see your counselor right away. Okay, this can end up saving you and your family considerable amounts of money. Then we gave the students, or the counselors gave the students, their registration forms. This is the back of the registration form, which has instructions on how to go to Skyward and register for next year. We will do this in class Thursday, March 21st, to ensure that students have done it correctly, but they are encouraged to do this outside of class as well. The front side of the form looks like this. In the empty box at the top will be the student's name pre-printed, unless you just joined us this week at Northlake. Outline, subject by subject, with boxes next to each class. You will check those boxes of your choice in your planning. You'll notice that there are teacher initials in some of these boxes, because if you are going to take a challenge course, you need the initials of the teacher that you're taking right now. In other words, your 7th grade teacher needs to acknowledge that you've shown the skills and work ethic to be able to take that class. So be sure you get those initials. and then some places where you can take electives and alternates. You always want to put down alternates for your electives. In case for some reason you don't get into your first choices, you want something that they can refer to. Otherwise, if you don't get into your first choice and you have no alternates, they just dump you into the next available course, and you might not be happy with this. So here's information, where to go for what, the administrators and the counselors. It's also, again, there on the Cavelero website. And that is the end of the presentation. Again, reminder, there is a parent presentation Thursday night, the 14th, at Cavelero. Flyers went home. They were also emailed. They also went out on Peach Jar. But if you need anything, please contact myself or the school or Cavelero, and we will get you what you need to know.